the new Trump regime, now in its fourth week of destruction, unleashed more onslaughts on the rights of Americans, government agencies, and the rule of law. But at least we had the Super Bowl to make us feel better about everything, right? Eh. Not to be overshadowed, Donald flooded the airwaves with two interviews pregame. One taped interview for Fox, and the second live from Air Force One. From there, in the middle of the dystopian nightmare that continues to unfold with an almost unimaginable level of support from his fascist party and many in the corporate media, Donald had a message designed, of course, to unite the American people, because that's what he does best. Let's look at this clip.
There's a light over the United States. People are happy. They're more confident. The approval ratings for this country have gone through the sky. More than at any time we've had approval ratings that there's never been anything like it. We've never seen 49 points up. 49 points up. And I think there's a light actually long beyond this country, all over the world. I've been called by other leaders. They said, sir, there's a light over our country right now. There's a light over the world.
Ooh, a sir story in the middle of all that those lies and delusions. Foreign leaders do not refer to each other as sir. Anyway, there may indeed be a light over this country. I'm just hoping that it's the light of spaceships from other planets that are here to help those of us who don't want to be here anymore escape. No, it's probably just the sun. But again, where do you start? Where do you start? Approval's up, rating is up 49%. Foreign leaders are calling him sir. God's in his heaven and all's right with the world. Angels are dancing on the heads of pins. I mean, I honestly, he's a joke. Clearly, he's delusional. He's dementing. However, this evangelical apostolic bullshit is dangerous. And of course, the people who push those kinds of deeply un-American beliefs have a lot of power now. So you have a little bit of insight into how well Donald made use of his time in front of the camera. And as always, these interviews open up, or theoretically should open up, many opportunities for Donald to respond to the drastic implications of his regime's swift and harmful actions. Right? To put the American people put the American people's minds at rest about their financial security, their financial futures, about the stability of the government, which is looking very precarious right about now. He could have done that about any number of things. But of course, the chaos is his. It's being created by him and the people he's chosen to create it for him. Right? So who are we kidding, really? Donald has never met an opportunity he didn't squander. So what we got instead was the usual mix of lies, incoherent ramblings, and gaslighting. Of course, we're going to dive into all of this, provide you with the context of what we know to be the truth behind every single talking point. But before we dive in, please take a second to like and share this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. After you subscribe, click on the bell, because that way you will be assured to be alerted every time a new video drops. Let's talk about Elon Musk for a second, because sadly and tragically, he's an unavoidable topic of conversation. As a quote-unquote unpaid special employee, unquote, his financial records remain hidden, covering over what are almost certainly his many, many, many conflicts of interest. And this despite his sweeping illegal, unconstitutional, unconfirmed influence over our federal agencies. Watchdogs warn that his business ties, including government contracts and foreign dealings, pose serious ethical risks. Watch this clip.
Why does Elon's financial disclosure remain secret?
Because nobody's looking at that. We're looking at all the corruption that's taken place. I mean, his financial disclosure is largely the number of shares that he's got in very public companies, and that's not secret at all. If you read that, you'll see a lot. I mean, he talks about his whole thing. I read one where it really gave a very good history of him, but basically it's the number of shares times a certain stock price.
Why is that not public?
It is public. All you have to do is read it.
Ooh. Something got under his very thin skin there. Of course, that's not true. A lot of this stuff is not public. That's why it needs to be disclosed. But there's nothing quite like loyalty among thieves, is there? Critics, of course, highlight Musk's past demands for full government transparency, while he benefits from secrecy around his finances and, again, his massive government contracts. Gee, I wish there was somebody who could have done something about all of that between, say, I don't know, 2021 and 2025. Meanwhile, Donald downplayed concerns over Doge's access to Americans' private financial data, offering no justification because he doesn't have to. Of course, we should all be asking, do we trust Elon? But that kind of seems at this point like a rhetorical question because the answer is, of course we don't. Take a look at this clip.
And I've had a great help with Elon Musk, who's been terrific.
Bottom line, you say you trust him.
Trust Elon? Oh, he's not gaining anything. In fact, I wonder how he can devote the time to it. He's so into it. But I told him do that. Then I'm going to tell him very soon, like maybe in 24 hours, to go check the Department of Education. He's going to find the same thing. Then I'm going to go to the military. Let's check the military. We're going to find billions, hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud and abuse. But I campaigned on this, Brett.
First of all, he did not answer the question. Do you trust Elon Musk? Secondly, he is having one guy, unelected, unconfirmed, unvetted, who did not go through an FBI background check, access to everything. And it doesn't look like anybody's quite gotten around to stopping him yet. And when Donald and Elon Musk talk about the billions and hundreds of billions of fraudulent expenses, what they are telling you is how much money they're going to steal from us. Last week, several lawsuits were filed. Good, because this seems to be one of the most effective ways that we're going to regain any ground, I should say. The group is represented by Public Citizen Litigation Group and State Democracy Defenders Fund. The lawsuit alleges that Doge programmers unlawfully accessed Treasury Department's payment systems, exposing Americans' private financial data. Because they did. A judge issued a temporary hold on Doge's access, which is good, although, of course, it remains to be seen whether or not Donald and his minions and Elon and his minion, Donald, are going to abide by the court's ruling. A judge issued as the lawsuits pile up, the GOP-controlled judiciary continues to shield Doge. Legal experts warn that while Doge faces numerous lawsuits, the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court, which has aligned itself with Donald Trump almost from day one, faces numerous lawsuits. And lower courts. Fucking idiot. A judge issued a temporary hold on Doge's access. Of course, it remains to be seen whether Donald and his minions or Elon and his minion, Donald, abide by the court's ruling. As the lawsuits pile up, the GOP-controlled judiciary continues to shield Doge. Legal experts warn that while Doge faces numerous lawsuits, the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court, which has aligned itself with Donald Trump almost exclusively since 2016, lower courts as well, which were packed with his appointees, could enable Musk's unchecked authority, which again would be unconstitutional, and illegal. But this corrupt, illegitimate Supreme Court supermajority doesn't care about either one of those things, as long as whatever Donald and his regime do fulfills their own ambitions for what they believe this country should look like. Critics note that Musk has a history of mass firings, union busting, and discrimination lawsuits at Tesla and Twitter. His Doge tenure mirrors those tactics, consolidating power while courts struggle to check him. In addition to the legal questions surrounding Musk's government takeover, both he and JD Vance are challenging judicial authority, which should send chills down everybody's spine, as reported yesterday, February 9th, in multiple news sources. Check this out.
You suffered a couple of court losses, Mr. President, and J.D. Vance said judges aren't allowed to control the executive power. What's your take on that?
Well, we're going to see what happens. We have a long way to go, and we're talking about fraud, waste, abuse, and when a president can't look for fraud and waste and abuse, we don't have a country anymore. So we're very disappointed with the judges that would make such a ruling, but we have a long way to go. We have to find all of the fraud that's going on. We have tremendous fraud, tremendous waste, and tremendous abuse, and theft, by the way. And the day you're not allowed to look for theft and fraud, etc., then we don't have much of a country. So no judge should frankly be allowed to make that kind of a decision. It's a disgrace.
How dare judges believe in separation of powers? What a travesty. Oh yeah, right. That's in the Constitution. Actually, I actually agree with him on something. I don't know that we have a country anymore. Also, can I help look for waste and fraud? The fact that grotesque creature is lecturing anybody about how things work, considering he knows nothing and has never read the Constitution, and is literally handed over the keys to the second most grotesque creature to roam the planet, is a bit much to take. And then, of course, we have Vice President J.D. Vance. I don't know if you remember who he is, but why bother? He's been arguing on Twitter that judges cannot control the president's legitimate power. That's their jobs, especially if he's wielding it illegitimately, JD. Raising alarms about potential constitutional crises. You mean more? Just to be clear, we're in one or several already. So, for those keeping score at home. His remarks echoed past statements advocating executive defiance of court rulings. Because fascists gonna fascist. A federal judge temporarily blocked Donald's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing sensitive Treasury data department systems after 19 states' attorneys general sued, citing privacy concerns. And I'm pretty sure those aren't the only concerns we all have right now. Musk reposted a message questioning the legitimacy of judicial rulings and called for the impeachment of U.S. District Judge Paul Engelmeyer after his ruling against Doge. Yes, this unelected, unconstitutionally installed, unconfirmed, unvetted creep is calling for the impeachment of a federal judge because that judge is doing his job. Musk post states that the judge, quote, needs to be impeached now, unquote. Yeah, let's get right on that, shall we? Law professors warn that if Donald's administration ignores court orders, it could trigger a constitutional crisis with Congress as the only viable check, which is a fucking joke. Because Congress is not a check anymore. Because thanks to a deeply ignorant, racist, misogynistic, anti-immigrant plurality of voters, Republicans control everything. There's not going to be an impeachment unless we have the great good fortune to have a Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, in the not-too-distant future. In 2021, Vance suggested that Donald should ignore court rulings and remove civil servants resisting his agenda, comparing the strategy to Andrew Jackson's defiance of the Supreme Court. It's pretty clear that his views have not changed. First of all, If Andrew Jackson is your model for anything, then you do not deserve to be anywhere near the levers of power. Secondly, this is exactly what's happening. They're implementing Schedule F. They're getting rid of lifelong career civil servants just because, without any recourse, without any way for said civil servants to challenge the decisions. And, of course, that leaving open vacancies that can be filled by people who must prove that they are loyal not to the United States, not to the United States Constitution, but to Donald Trump. And if that's a choice you make, I do not believe there is any hope for you. Donald, who has to be one of the most anti-intellectual gargoyles, certainly that I've ever known, has decided to take over the Kennedy Center. Yes, a cultural institution. Donald doesn't know what culture is, and he doesn't care about art, so that's weird. And his reasons for doing so is that he wants to create a quote unquote golden age. He made this announcement on February 7th, saying he was going to dismiss the Kennedy Center's board of trustees, including Chairman David Rubenstein, and again, appoint himself as chairman. That's illegal. He does not have the authority to do any of that. Looks like he might be doing it anyway. And he's citing disapproval of the center hosting drag performances targeting youth. Watch this.
Why do you want to be chairman of the Kennedy Center board?
Because I want to make sure it runs properly. We don't need woke at the Kennedy Center. We don't need, some of the shows were terrible. They're a disgrace that they were even put on. So I'll be there until such time as it gets to be running right.
Have you seen any shows there? How do you know they're
I didn't go. No, I got reports. It was so bad. I didn't want to go. There was nothing I wanted to see.
Okay, so basically he'll be there forever. Listen, the Kennedy Center has responded, and they note that presidents can replace board members, but such actions are unprecedented. And it was emphasized that the Kennedy Center has a history of bipartisan governance. I'm not entirely sure why anybody's going to stand for this, but that seems to be the world we're living in now. This is a statement put out by the Kennedy Center. Quote, throughout our history, the Kennedy Center has enjoyed strong support from members of Congress and their staffs, Republicans, Democrats, and independents. The Kennedy Center has had a bipartisan board of trustees that has supported the arts in a nonpartisan fashion. The Kennedy Center is aware of the post made recently by POTUS on social media. We have received no official communications from the White House regarding changes to our board of trustees. We're aware that some members of our board have received termination notices from the administration. Again, like much else of what that we see happening now, the move upends decades of tradition and aligns with Donald's broader effort to reshape government agencies and destroy our culture, destroy our multicultural approach to the arts and to democracy, to what it means to be a fucking human being on this planet. He doesn't want to reshape it. He wants to destroy all of it. Because he doesn't know anything about any of the things he's dismantling. All he knows is he doesn't have enough, and he wants more. And if that requires dismantling other things for him to get that, so be it. The problem, Donald, is there is never enough for you. So we're just going to have to see how that plays out, won't we? On to Gaza, where it's been reported that, as we told you last week, Donald has stated that his regime is committed to taking control of Gaza and relocating Palestinians. I have to assume that would be forcibly. He also says that America will oversee construction or reconstruction of the almost entirely obliterated Gaza Strip, despite global condemnation. He suggested that Middle Eastern countries might assist in redevelopment. Watch this clip.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices, but we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. It'll be, the remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe. But we'll make it into a very good site for future development by somebody.
Yeah, well, according to news reports on February 10th, Palestinian leaders, the UN, and Germany condemned the proposal as illegal, warning that forced displacement violates international law. Hamas called the idea absurd. I do not like agreeing with Hamas. Seriously, never put me in that position, please. While Israel Netanyahu praised it as revolutionary and creative, I'm more than happy to disagree with Benjamin Netanyahu, however. Donald did not clarify from whom the U.S. would, quote unquote, buy Gaza. Just like you can't buy Greenland, you cannot buy Gaza, or how ownership would be established. Only a madman would think that such a thing is possible. He claimed that Palestinians don't want to go back and promised that they would, quote unquote, live beautifully, says the man who doesn't know what that means. Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia strongly opposed any forced relocation of Palestinians. I'm pretty sure that Palestinians would have similar feelings. Egypt called the proposal reckless, and Jordan labeled it a, quote, flagrant violation of international law, unquote. Now, while Donald is talking about a real estate deal, which is completely imaginary, untenable, illegal, and would likely be considered a crime against humanity, after months of war, over 48,000 people have been killed in Gaza. Nearly 70% of the buildings have been destroyed, and most of the population has been displaced multiple times. The fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hamas has seen some hostage exchanges, but hostages still remain captive. Of course, Donald is still attempting to distract us with pennies. He wants to get rid of the penny. Again, guys, don't make me agree with him. He wants to get rid of paper straws and bring back plastic straws, which is both stupid and destructive. And he's still harping on about Canada becoming the 51st state. And I'm pretty sure if he keeps doing that, people are going to start taking him seriously and act accordingly. In an interview on Sunday, February 9th, Donald stated in a Fox interview that making Canada the 51st state is, quote unquote, a real thing, citing economic losses. Watch this clip.
The Prime Minister said this weekend to a group of Canadian businessmen, he was a private meeting, he said that your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
No. One, that is not true. Why do I bother repeating myself? But it's not true. Two, only an abjectly insane person would float that idea as if it were a perfectly reasonable thing. He also seems not to understand that Canada would become our biggest blue state because he's stupid, in addition to being insane. Tariffs are still in the news because Donald will not shut up about them. He proposed a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum on goods, the goods coming from Canada, allegedly set for today. That's Monday, February 10th. I don't really think that that's going to make Canada look more kindly upon us. Take a look at this clip.
We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday. Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum, too.
10%? What's
10,
that?
no, 25%.
25 for aluminum.
25 for both. I'll be announcing probably Tuesday or Wednesday at a news conference reciprocal tariffs, and very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. That's all.
When does it go into effect, sir?
Almost immediately, but I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed, and it'll be great for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way.
It's not every country?
Every country will be reciprocal.
Yeah, because he's nothing if not a detail man. So correction, I misspoke. It's not just steel and aluminum from Canada. It's steel and aluminum from anywhere. Steel and aluminum happen to be two of Canada's largest exports to us. That's why I was thinking Canada. So it will also affect Canada. But, it's also going to affect many European countries, etc. Donald claims the new tariffs aim to protect domestic metal producers, but that is also incorrect. Shocking, I know. They actually risk escalating trade war tensions. Domestic markets are already becoming inflamed by this, here and abroad. The UK exports 200 tons of steel to the United States annually, worth over $495 million. Industry leaders say the tariffs would be a quote-unquote devastating blow to high-end steel exports. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's spokesperson stated that Britain is monitoring the situation, but has not seen detailed proposals yet. So weird. The UK is preparing for potential economic fallout, and the EU, the European Union, is bracing for a full-out trade war. The article in Euronews reported on Monday, February 10th, that the European Commission has condemned the 25% tariffs as, quote, unlawful and economically counterproductive, unquote, and vowed to defend European businesses if they are implemented. The French president criticized Donald's trade policies, arguing that Europe is a U.S. ally and should not be harmed by tariffs, which makes sense if you have any. Similar tariffs imposed during Donald's first term led to EU retaliatory measures against the United States goods, including whiskey and motorcycles, which sounds pointed. A temporary truce under Biden is set to expire in March 2025. European officials stated that they were informed of Donald's tariff plans and hope to negotiate. Good luck with that. But they remain ready to respond if necessary. Now, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will meet aforementioned Vice President Vance in Paris on Tuesday, where trade tensions are expected to be a key topic. I don't think Vance is the guy you want sitting into that particular meeting. I do not think it will end well. Experts argue tariffs stifle economic growth, prop up inefficient domestic producers, and reduce competition by limiting foreign imports. And I would suggest to you that that is entirely the point. Either that, or Donald doesn't care what experts have to say about anything and is going to do whatever he wants because he is an impulsive toddler. Or both things could be true at the same time. Finally, remember Donald promised to end the war in Ukraine not on day one of his new regime, but the day after the election, day one of the transition, war in Ukraine. Supposed to go away. Well, he did move back that timeline. He moved it back to January 21st, which by my count was 577,000 years ago or something. I think maybe 22 days. It's hard to tell. Anyway, Donald has now suggested that negotiations were advancing in regards to the war in Ukraine, but he refused to disclose the details about his communications with Vladimir Putin. Watch this.
Sir, can you tell us about your conversation with Vladimir Putin?
I don't want to do that now. We're trying to end that war. It's a war that would have never happened if I were president. Would have never happened. But we're making progress, but I can't tell you.
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened because it wouldn't have needed to happen. Putin would have picked up the phone and said, hey, Donald, I need Ukraine. And Donald would have said, okay, what can I do for you? He doesn't want to reveal the conversation between him and Vladimir Putin because that conversation probably was comprised wholly of Putin giving Donald orders and Donald saying, Yes, sir. A Kremlin spokesman neither confirmed nor denied the reported discussions, while Putin stated he is open to talks but unwilling to concede any occupied Ukrainian territory, which means that Putin is completely unwilling to end his illegal war against our ally, whom we are leaving out to dry. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky publicly addressed Donald saying, quote, "Let's do a deal," unquote, signaling a willingness to engage in potential peace talks, which is both potentially pragmatic and deeply, deeply heartbreaking. If confirmed, this would supposedly mark the first direct conversation between a United States president and Vladimir Putin over 2 years, which raises concerns about potential shifts in U.S. foreign policy. You think? According to the New York Post on Saturday, Donald said, quote, "He has concrete plans to end the war," unquote. No, he does not. I kind of wish that people would stop quoting him as if what he's saying is factually accurate or grounded in reality at all. Maybe add a little skepticism for those of us not paying close attention. Thank you. Vance will also be meeting with Zelensky at the Munich Security Conference next week. I do not know what Zelensky did to deserve that. It will not go well. I'm placing that marker right now. Donald said he wants to strike a $500 million deal with Zelensky to access rare earth minerals and gas in Ukraine in exchange for security guarantees and any potential peace settlement, which sounds kind of like a mob protectionist racket to me, you scumbag. However, Donald's refusal to provide details about the negotiation fuels speculation about the terms being discussed and whether U.S. policy toward Ukraine may change significantly. All right, going forward, never take this person at his word. Press him for details, which he does not have. Stop buying into his bullshit narrative about anything. Your starting point needs to be, whether you're a journalist or a reporter or somebody who's just interested in what's happening, your starting point, your default position needs to be he's lying to you, he's delusional, he's wrong, or some combination of all those, or he's gaslighting us. It's pretty simple. Thanks. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.